Shalom Uvracha to all of our viewers and all of our listeners. This week's parasha universally is Shlach. Comes right after Bahaloischo. And as Rashi points out, there is some sort of continuity between all of these sections. There is a continuity. One section flows from the other section in a very logical way. In other words, there is a thematic connection. Rashi, in the beginning of Parashat Shlach, where the Torah tells us, "Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Lemar," Kadosh Baruch Hu consented to sending the scouts and the spies to Eretz Yisrael before the Jewish people will enter and conduct a war and banish the 7 nations from the Holy Land. So Rashi says on the word Shlach L'cho Anoshim, send out for yourselves men. And which kind of men were supposed to be sent out as the spies? So the Rashi already points out, and the Pasuk says explicitly, Roshei B'nai Yisrael, the leaders of the Jewish people. And this will be the discussion and the title of the Shiur, leaders who mislead, misleading leaders. Rashi says they're chashuvim, these people that were accepted to be the scouts, the spies, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by the Jewish people, and by everyone. Consent, universal consent, because they were outstanding people, and a number of them were even superior in stature to Yoshua ben Nun. Mind-boggling. So Rashi says, "Lama nismach parshas meraglim leparshas Miriam, fishalok saliske dibo shedibra be'ochio, rishayim alolu ro'u v'lo lokhu musa." The parsha of the Meraglim, the section dealing with the Meraglim, is juxtaposed with the section dealing with Miriam's colloquial slander on Moshe Rabbeinu. And because she was punished over the matters of slander for speaking against her brother, and these wicked people, Chazal called them Rishoyim, even though the Pasuk says Rosh B'nai Yisrael, Rashi says they were, it's a Lashon Chashivus, they were outstanding, noble leaders. So they witnessed her punishment, but they did not learn their lesson. This is what Rashi says. And of course, the question arises, and it's a very difficult question to answer. Apparently, after we analyze these 2 sections, we see there's no corollary whatsoever between these 2 sections. Rashi implies that had they understood properly the lesson of the punishment of Miriam, they would not have come to speak negative about Eretz Yisrael. So if this would be the simple meaning, so Rashi makes sense. However, this is not the meaning at all. This is not the simple meaning either. The Meraglim rebelled against the wishes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was to bring the Jewish people into Eretz Yisrael. And he stated this to Moshe Rabbeinu when he said, "Ve'evesi, I will bring the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. We commemorate that expression of freedom insofar as the destination of Yetzias Mitzrayim is concerned, Leila Seder, with the 5th kos, which is Keneged, which corresponds to Vesi Eschem. Kadosh Baruch Hu promises, I will take you into the land of Eretz Yisrael, that I raised my right arm in an oath to bring them into that land, because after all, that's the best land possible. Eretz HaNevcheres. Jewish people are the select people, and Eretz Yisrael is the select land. So what exactly is the sin of the Meraglim? Slander? They degraded Eretz Yisrael? No, not at all. Although that's also true, but that is not the sin of the Meraglim. The sin of the Meraglim is said in the Pasuk explicitly, Ach Bashem al timroidu, do not rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not simple demeaning the land, not understanding the unique value of Eretz Yisrael, like not understanding the uniqueness of Moshe Rabbeinu, and then speaking negative based on that misjudgment. No, it's much, much, much more than that. It's an actual Moirid ben Malchus Shemayim. It's a rebellion against the kingdom of God. And if Chazal would not have said it, it's difficult for us even to say it after the Chazal said it. But we know that the Meraglim stated clear, Ki chazaku mimenu lo nuchal la'los. It is impossible for us to go up to Eretz Yisrael and capture it. Ki chazaku mimenu. So literally it means because it is stronger. They are stronger than us. Rashi, for some, brings the Chazal. But they are stronger than we are. Who is they? The giants that they are residing now in the land of Canaan. Who is Mimenu? From we. No, it means HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they came Kaviyochel Klape Mailo Omru. They said, it's impossible. Why is it impossible? Very simple. Because the people of the land are stronger than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says Hashem Yishmol Chama. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the paradigmatic example of a warrior. If there's a war that one starts with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he'll be defeated. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is omnipotent. So they denied the omnipotence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is called in the Lashon of the Zohar, Klipach Reina. They came to the bottom. Chayfer Baker. So we see that the sin of the Meraglim was not against Eretz Yisrael. That was parenthetical. That was incidental. That was the vehicle. Basically, they were Kaifer, the Iker, and they don't have Olam Haba for them. It's an amazing story. No way we can understand it. It's beyond our grasp. But this is what the words say, and this is what we read every year. This is what we study. So, at this point, Rashi is impossible to understand. Because insofar as Miriam is concerned, the section dealing with Miriam, what does the chet of Miriam consist of? Of pointing out a certain criticism insofar as the personal lifestyle of Moshe Rabbeinu is concerned. Gam banu diber Hashem. Ha'achak b'Moshe diber Hashem. Gam banu diber Hashem. We're all friendly with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He communicates with us. We're also prophets. We're also zeicha to have a revelation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And yet, we did not detach ourselves from living a normal life within the context of Olam Haza and having a normal family life and relationship. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu's only reason to be Peiresh, to cut off Tzipora, and Tzipora is not specifically Tzipora, but all other types of relationships with Olam Haza, with anything which has to do with materialism, a normal biological life. So Moshe cut off totally. Why? The only reason could be because he's a prophet. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're also prophets. He has Kedusha, otherwise there would be no revelation to Moshe Rabbeinu by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We also have Kedusha, and yet we stayed within the parameters of a normal family existential life. That's all they said. So let's now presuppose, to make the question stronger, that this had not taken place. Parshas Miriam had not taken place. Can we come to the conclusion that Parshas Meraglim would not have taken place? Parshas Meraglim is a separate, independent parasha, like the commentators point out. Obviously, Rashi, who brings down the Medrash and Chumah, will hold a different explanation. He cannot accept this explanation, and we will see the other explanation in order to strengthen the question. So at this juncture, we see it's two separate, independent types of transgressions, one dealing interpersonal relationships, and it's no more than a slight comment about the personal lifestyle of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Parshas Meraglim revolves around Pharaoh, denying the omnipotence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, rebelling against his will. They know the Lamokan wasn't just slander. That was incidental. So this juncture, it would behoove us to try to understand what happened insofar as the Parsha Meraglim is concerned, putting Rashi aside. We will get back to Rashi. But in the meantime, let us try to analyze Parsha Shlach not within the context of a continuity of the previous Parsha, but as a separate Parsha unto itself. What happened? We're talking about Rosh B'nai Yisrael. So, of course, we know, it's accepted almost as axiomatic. Lord Acton, 1887, said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men, on many occasions, can become bad men, even when they only exercise influence and not authority. Still more, when you superadd the tendency of the certainty of corruption by authority. So, of course, this is very, very well known, and somehow it appeals to our intuitive instincts, and it's been accepted. However, in Parshas HaMeraglim, we see that he's not totally right. He's right, but not totally right. Because on occasion, there's a greater tendency that leads to corruption. And that is the fear of the loss of power and corrupt more than having a position of power. And this is what Reb Reuven Grozovsky taught us. We'll try to say this very briefly because it's extremely important, and there's three conclusions which Reb Reuven draws from this section, which is relevant to us. And everything we've said now is only within the framework of us learning a lesson. We want to learn a lesson. We want to be a lokhu musa. We want to take a moral, didactic message from this parsha. So Reb Reuven, first and foremost, states what we said a moment ago, they were tzaddikim, righteous people. The Torah has said witness, Torah is a witness that they were righteous people. Yalkut said they were also righteous be'enei Hashem, gam be'enei Moshe. And at that time, also Kadosh Baruch Hu agreed that they are tzaddikim, they should be sent. And suddenly, dramatically, these tzaddikim caused the death of millions of people. Because that generation that was above 20 perished in the Midbar due to the influence and perhaps authority of 10 Miraglim. Their koyach of influencing millions of people is beyond our grasp. Not only did they bring about that the Jewish people should not enter Eretz Yisrael, the Menucha, and that should be their inheritance, and they would be able to fulfill all the mitzvahs that are tluyas ba'aretz, all the mitzvahs that depend on Eretz Yisrael. They denied omnipotence of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, despite the fact that they witnessed not too long ago the miracles of Yitzias Mitzrayim, the miracles of Kriyas Yamsuf, and the multitude of miracles of Matan Torah, where all 7 heavens opened up and everybody caught a glimpse of the glory and majesty of Kodesh B'richu. Amazing. And these Rosh B'nai Yisrael have no chedek lo'olam haba forever. Why? What happened? How could there be such an abrupt transition from tzaddikim to rishoyim? And Rashi says, b'shem Chazal, for rishoyim alolu, these wicked people. So the Zohar and the Mesilas Yesharim, classic Sefer Musar of the Ramchal, said for one reason. There was a fear of loss of power and prestige. They were powerful, influential people, prominent. They were Nesiim, and a number of them were superior in stature to Yeshua ben Nun and Kaleb ben Yefuneh. And they were so great that Baruch HaKodesh, they foresaw that in Eretz Yisrael there's going to be a different system of existence, and they will not be able to maintain their positions of power and influence, of respect and prominence, and in the hierarchy of the leadership of Klal Yisrael. So they had self-serving interest to remain in the Midbar. In the Midbar, there was a type of lifestyle which was conducive to having them with their abilities, capacities, and capabilities to be the Nesiim. This is called, in our lingo, a negio, a self-serving interest. Egotistically motivated. And Reuven says that this is natural. The Chazon Ish wrote a whole kuntres of negios. Everybody is overwhelmed, overpowered on a daily basis with his egotistical, self-serving interest, with his natural tendencies to prosper, to make money, to have respect in the society. These are natural type of tendencies. And great people, says Reb Reuven Grozovsky, need rachamim min hashamayim to make sure that they don't fall into this dangerous trap of self-serving interest, of seeing their own interest, idolizing themselves instead of reaching beyond themselves, transcending themselves, and only being interested, focusing on the well-being and welfare of the Jewish people. And it was a strong possibility that had Moshe Rabbeinu not prayed for Yeshua ben Nun and had Kaleb ben Yefun and not gone to Kivrei Avos and begged mercy from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he should not fall into this trap, so it could be they also would have been lost. Said the great Reb Reuven Grozovsky, we older people who grew up in America 60 years ago, so we had paradigmatic examples of what a true, genuine, authentic Talmud Chacham is. And one of his examples, of course, was Reb Reuven Grozovsky. Reb Reuven Grozovsky was the one that founded Vadat Sola. Other members, of course, were the illustrious Blazer Silver from Cincinnati. When the Baron Cutler came to America, the Baron Cutler, Moshe Feinstein, when the Satmarov came, he also participated, but the founder was Reb Reuven Grozovsky. I think that before we continue, it's important just to point out one or two stories about Reb Reuven, if you will have the patience to bear with me. In the mid-40s, they investigated, the FBI, the Vadat Sola, because the anti-Semitic elements of Washington were interested in stopping the efforts of the Vadat Sola to save Jews from the concentration camps and the death camps, being burned alive in the ovens of Majdanek, Bergen-Belsen, Auschwitz, and so on and so forth. The claim, of course, was that they have transgressed American law. Certain laws that they have totally vitiated. So the New York Times, a legacy of anti-Semitism, of course, published a letter on the front page without any payment. They didn't exact any payment. They were very happy to do it. From Reb Reuven Grozovsky. And he stated as follows: there's no need for the FBI and the Interpol to investigate our organization. I'm the Yoshev Rosh, and I admit that I personally was in Mexico and I paid professional forgers to forge passports, American passports, and American visas in order to save my fellow Jews from the concentration camps and the death camps. Of course, that's against the law. Number two, I also admit that I, Reb Reuven Grozovsky, personally undertook negotiations with representatives of the Nazi Party to give them money to buy tanks, not to be used against American soldiers, but only against the Russian army in order to free the Jews from the camps. So there's no need to investigate. I admit that this is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. New York Times eagerly and happily printed this story. And the Baron used to say one of the great nissim and nifloyos of World War II was they did absolutely nothing. The FBI closed the file on Reb Reuven Grozovsky personally and on the Vadat Sola. The last years of his life, 6 years, he was in a wheelchair. How was that? He was run over. Reb Reuven Grozovsky was very careful when he crossed the street. After an investigation, he was run over by the mafia because he tried to break the mafia's hold on the union of shaykhim. So this is just two stories about the greatness of Reuven Grozovsky. We do not have to speak too long about his unassailable integrity, the fact that he had no ego whatsoever. His entire focus was only on the welfare of the Jewish people. So therefore, after this introduction, hopefully we'll understand what Reb Reuven says a little bit better. And Reb Reuven says as follows. When a person idolizes himself to the extent that everything he does revolves around his own benefit, his own personal self-serving interest. He cannot transcend himself to serve someone else. So his entire intellectual judgment is transformed to the extent that the Meraglim actually saw that not going into Eretz Yisrael and staying in the desert or going back to Mitzrayim is a salvation for Klal Yisrael. Ro b'divrayim hatzolas Yisrael. Because if they went into Eretz Yisrael, they would all die a misa mishuna, a strange misa. To the extent, said Reb Reuven, that Chazal tell us they actually prayed they should die in the midbar to avoid coming into Eretz Yisrael and dying an unusual, cruel death. And this, the Meraglim thought was 100% true. At this juncture, we don't have to continue too much. We have to see the three Yesodis that we learn from the parsha of the Meraglim, according to the interpretation that it's not linked up with Miriam, separate, independent. The one who states this emphatically is the Zohar. They worried for their own career, for their own position, and the Ramchal. Mesilas Yesharim, classic Sefer, Perek Yud Aleph. At the end, they were worried coming into Eretz Yisrael, there would be other Nesiim, other leaders instead of them, and they could not in any way fathom that they would lose their position of honor and dignity. So we learned three important Yesodis, all of us. Said the great one, Reb Reuven Grozovsky, to break a midah ra, even partially, egoism, selfishness, idolizing yourself, is the one of the most difficult things in the world. And the going, as Reb Reuven brings down, says it's much harder than learning through Shas. If someone thinks he can't learn through Shas and he breaks one midah ra, one bad character trait, he's superior to somebody who went through Shas. The Goy, a spokesman for Yiddishkeit, a spokesman for Judaism, the Goy. Number two, we learn that the destructive power that perhaps is the most destructive power in the world, more than an atom bomb, said Reb Reuven, more than nuclear bombs, is a self-serving interest. Because a nuclear bomb could not have brought about the death of so many people the way one Nagia brought about. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, 250,000 people were lost. There are millions and millions, men, women, sons, daughters. That's number two. More destructive than atomic energy, than nuclear bombs. And number three, the most important of all the lessons we learn from the Meraglim, and we'll read this inside. She'ein teirosoi, v'tzidkosoi b'chazdoi shovek klum, ki ish kozeh yochel laroi ges kol Yisrael b'mokem shebo lidrosh teivosam latzilom. And we learn from here another lesson. That a person's Torah, regardless of what level of Torah he rose to, and his righteousness, and the kindness, millions and millions of dollars he bestowed on institutions and individuals, is worthless. Because if he did not in any way purge, purify himself from the Gia's self-serving interests, so he can bring about the entire destruction of the Jewish people, claiming that he's interested in their welfare and in their salvation. One of the greatest paradoxes of all time. This is what Reb Reuven Grozovsky taught us, quite important. Well, now, the time that we have left, we shall return to the question on Rashi. So what do we do with Rashi? Rashi brings down a common denominator between the Parsha of Miriam and the Meraglim. The answer is based on the aside of the Rambam and the Kuzri. Rambam says that we have a leader, not somebody who misleads. We have leaders and misleaders. The Meraglim were from the misleaders of Klal Yisrael. But we have true leaders. And those true leaders, like Moshe Rabbeinu, who was a manik, and also the Rambam says he was a melech. So he pidot Torah, the Torah was very persistent, meticulous, that he should be able to rise to the occasion. Sheliboy hu leiv kol kahal Yisrael. He has to have unlimited commitment to Torah. For what reason? Because his heart, his mind, and his soul embraces the entire Am Yisrael. Not only are the people dependent on the leader, not only the entire welfare of the nation, the country, depends upon the leader, but the leader has to be Kalev Shebei Varim. He has to be the heart of the Jewish people, experiencing the pain and suffering of each individual and the joy and happiness. And he has to be able to deal with their troubles, with their sufferings. And if we have a low element of Jewish people, Balei Taivus, so he has to be able to deal with every single one. This is the side of the Rambam and of the Kutzri. And we can ask a question. And it's a question that should be asked. What is the connection, what is the juxtaposition between the Parsha of Miriam, who spoke slanderously of Moshe Rabbeinu, and the previous Parsha of Kivras HaTaiva? Kivras HaTaiva, of course, was where Klal Yisrael demanded unlimited lust. Of course, they were led by the Erev Rav, and not everybody got involved in this rebellion, but it was the rebellion against the discipline of the Torah. They did not want to abide by any of the restrictions. They wanted boundless lust. They wanted there should be a permission insofar as Arias is concerned, and they wanted unlimited indulgence. Insofar as food consumption is concerned, that as we know from the saddest psukim that we have in the Torah, all night and all day, and the next day they gathered this slov, 36 hours of an expression of unlimited indulgence. Became extremely angry. And of course, there was immediate punishment. We don't know what those words mean. The Al-Sheikh and Ramban says that this was modern man. He wants unlimited, boundless freedom and liberty with no restrictions whatsoever. So they did not have a taiva. They had no desire. They had a desire to have desires. By Yisavu taiva, their desire was to have desires, that they should become not spiritual people anymore, but they should become animalistic, devoid of all commitments to a moral code and an ethical code. The moral compass will be whatever they decide they want. That's moral. And what they don't want, that's immoral. Says the Novi, what is this juxtaposition between Parshas Kivras HaTaiva and Miriam? And we see that Moshe Rabbeinu decided that he cannot any longer deal with the Jewish people, and he offered his resignation. The ayin li basal, I can't deal with them. We'll go back to that in a second, but he offers his resignation. So what's the thematic connection? The answer is very simple. Miriam was absolutely correct. It wasn't out of the clear blue yonder. She mentioned something about Moshe which was critical. No. We're talking about great, outstanding people. The juxtaposition between Kivras HaTaiva and Parshas Miriam is very simple. Moshe is at fault because Moshe has reached such levels of kedusha v'taira, of sanctity and holiness, that he is completely not capable of dealing with the lowest element of Am Yisrael. In a time where all of a sudden there's certain ritzonos, certain desires that come to fore, that are against all the principles of the Torah, perhaps all the principles of humanity. Kivras HaTaiva is not only a disgrace to the Jewish race, it's a disgrace to the human race. Unlimited. Precast oil, no yoke, no commitment to moral laws whatsoever. Difficult to understand how this came about. But that's the fact. So they said, Moshe Rabbeinu reached such a high level, he transcended all physical being, that on his level he cannot reach out to the lower elements in a time of trials and tribulations, where base biological desires are aroused to deal with the problem because he's too lofty. He just can't come down to such a level. And we don't understand why Moshe Rabbeinu had to uplift himself, exalt himself to such great levels. Now you see what the result is. The result is we have Kivras HaTaiva, a tragedy and a catastrophe for Klal Yisrael. That's l'chura, the juxtaposition. And for sure, Miriam was right. How do we know that? Because Moshe Rabbeinu resigned his position. And Moshe Rabbeinu, we're not used to Moshe Rabbeinu becoming so shaken, so despondent, and so complaining. He prefers to be relieved of future leadership. He doesn't want any more responsibility. And because God will not grant him his wishes of being relieved, he literally is resigning his position, so death is preferable. And he says, we'll just read the translation. Did I conceive the entire people? Did I give birth to them? That you say to me, carry them in your bosom as a nurse carries the suckling child? Where can I get the meat to give all these people? They're crying to me. Alone I can't carry the entire people. It's too hard for me. And this is the way, Rabbi Shalom, you will treat me. Please kill me. Yaeli Basar says the Meshech Chochmah means, where do I come, right, to an ability to focus my head on unlimited meat to give these people? For unlimited, I'm not capable of focusing, of having my body, soul, and mind oriented to such base needs of people. I'm on a higher spiritual level. I cannot communicate. It doesn't register by me. So Miriam and Aaron were right. So what's the solution? There's only one solution. We'll bring you 70 people to help you out. That was the only solution possible. And Moshe grudgingly accepted it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu consents with Moshe. There's a total consent. So what exactly is the taina? What exactly was the chet, the sin of Miriam and Aaron? We don't understand. She was absolutely right. And Moshe Rabbeinu proves it. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu consents to Moshe Rabbeinu. The answer is the depth of Rashi. Rashi said a very, very deep fundamental yesod to us. The new submarines. Here in Eretz Israel, we have a problem with the submarine investigation. But the submarines of the last years, so one of the aspects of the submarines is that the higher the periscope goes, the lower you could see. So now you can have periscopes that are very, very high, and they actually can see and fathom the bottom of the deepest ocean in the world. So this is an example. What is an example for? Miriam and Aaron made a mistake. They measured Moshe Rabbeinu according to their own concepts of a regular leader. And as far as a regular leader is concerned, so they're absolutely right. No question about it. A leader has to be able to go down from his level to deal with all elements of the population. However, Moshe is not a regular leader. Moshe is unique, and that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Per daber boy. I speak to him mouth to mouth like one person speaks to his friends. Lo bechidos, there's no reflection when I prophesize to Moshe Rabbeinu. By all of the Nevi'im, it's only a reflection of the Shekhinah. By Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a Mareh. What does Mareh mean? Not Mar'o. Mar'o is a mirror. It's only a reflection of the Shekhinah. By Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a see-through glass. He actually sees the Shekhinah. So Moshe Rabbeinu is so lofty, so high. He has koiches, he has powers that nobody has, and he can reach the lowest level of the Jewish people. What Miriam said was logical, but it was only applicable to regular leaders, not to Moshe Rabbeinu. There was never a leader like Moshe. We have a special Ani Mamin. There was never a prophet like Moshe. And the greater they are, and the closer they come to the pinnacle of holiness and sanctity, so the greater their koiches of reaching out are. You don't measure Moshe Rabbeinu according to the regular concepts of how to measure a leader and his koich to reach out. All you had to do was the Vatal Daito to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is like the best in Agoda B'Yerushalayim, says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, and on the best in Agoda B'Yerushalayim, the 71 elders, a compromise that comprise the Sanhedrin Agoda B'Yerushalayim. They're not in the dress for anyone's criticism. They say on your right hand, at your left hand, right hand, you listen to them. Obedience. Had you been obedient to Moshe Rabbeinu, had you realized that Moshe Rabbeinu has these special koiches, and you would do everything you can to accept his leadership, so this would not have taken place. And Klal Yisrael also should have realized that. Had it not been for the Asafsuf, it was a strange episode that happened. So it would not have taken place. And had it been another manhig or other manhigim, so it would have been a million times worse. Moshe Rabbeinu was above and beyond. We don't measure Moshe according to Derech HaSeichel, because he's l'mala miderech HaSeichel. He's above our intellect. We can't fathom him. We don't measure Moshe b'derech HaTeva because he's supernatural. And what he has, no one has. And will not understand it because it's a davar hatomio v'nela mimenu. It's hidden, it's esoteric. We can't understand it. The only thing we can do is accept it by negating our own. And that was the taina, that was the criticism of the Meraglim. You can't come to Eretz Yisrael. Why not? You didn't see the miracles the Kadosh Baruch Hu wrought in Mitzrayim? According to Derech HaTeva, according to the natural laws, we can't win. No question about it. But how did we arrive to this point? Through natural laws? Through supernatural laws? Through Yetzias Mitzrayim, Kriyas Yamsuf, Matan Torah, the Mon, Be'er Miriam. Our whole existence is a miraculous existence. It never took place before and it'll never take place again. This is meta-historical. L'mala miderech HaTeva, l'mala miderech HaSeichel. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you to go to Eretz Yisrael, you will go to Eretz Yisrael. We don't have the Keichas HaNefesh, we won't be able to make it. The war will be too difficult, etc. No. How do you know HaKadosh Baruch Hu won't give you the Keichas? Supernaturally. And that was the Smichas HaParashas. That's the juxtaposition. They should have learned from Miriam's punishment that you don't judge Moshe Rabbeinu according to the regular standards and laws of nature. He's above nature. His koiches exceed nature. It's unfathomable. And likewise, they should have learned the Musar, and they should have never said that we can't, like, Nuchalalos, the Teva, we can't do it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us, so He will miraculously supply us with the koiches to come into Eretz Yisrael.